dark and I started hearing whispers in the woods to our left. Welcome back to Spooky Storytime, where I'm just gonna pick a place on my inbox, read a story, click next, read a story, click next. We're doing this because I literally have thousands of your weird, unexplainable stories in my inbox, and I wanna share as many of them as I possibly can. I don't know if they're gonna be long, I don't know if they're gonna be short, I don't know if they're gonna be good, I don't know if they're gonna make any sense, but we're just gonna pick a place to start and we're gonna see what we get. What's up, glitches? I'm Jess, people call me Auntie Matrix, and I read your weird, unexplainable stories about things like glitches in the Matrix, dreams, aliens, and the paranormal. All of the stories that we read are people's real, true experiences that they send in to me, and our motto in this community is we believe you. If you want to join our glitch community on Discord, if you want to join in on the lives, if you want to grab some Anti-Matrix merch, or if you want to grab a copy of my book, A Glitch in the Matrix, all of the links are in the description below. And if you have a story that you'd like to share, you can send it to antimatrix@gmail.com. Just a quick reminder about the YouTube memberships we have here. The first tier is called the Glitch Community, and that one gives you a little badge next to your name and access to over 20 emotes that you can use in lives and in the comment section of my videos. Then there's Glitch Community Plus, which includes all of that, plus early access to videos, so you get to see stuff a day or two before everybody else. And we've just added a brand new tier. It's called Glitch Community Legends, and that one includes everything we just talked about, plus your username will be featured on the screen for a few seconds during the intro to all my long videos. If you'd like to become a member, you can click the join button next to my profile picture. But right now, let's get started. So sit back, grab a snack, and let's get weird. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I honestly don't know how to describe what happened to me. It's been 8 or 9 years and I still think about it, and whenever I share the story, people either don't believe me or try to explain it away, but to this day, I've never forgotten how real it felt. Don't you worry, because in this community, we believe you. That night, I went to sleep as usual. I remember lying on my side, but strangely, my arms were crossed over my chest like I was hugging myself. I never sleep like that, so it already felt unusual. Suddenly, I woke up, but I didn't open my eyes. I just knew I was awake. The strange thing was, I couldn't move. My entire body was frozen, especially my arms. I tried using all my strength to move them, and finally, after what felt like a huge struggle, I managed to move one hand. But then I touched something. It was a man's beard. And the second I touched it, I felt this horrible, sharp pain, like someone bit my hand with the sharpest teeth imaginable. It was real, and it hurt. Right after that, whatever had a hold on me let go. I could move again, and I opened my eyes, but of course, there was nothing there. There was what felt like a man in my bed. I'm sure of it. But back then, there was no man with a beard living in the house except my dad, and there's no way it was him. I always locked my door before sleeping, and he didn't have access to my room. Besides, he definitely doesn't have razor-sharp teeth. Every time I try to talk about this, people just dismiss it or call it sleep paralysis, but I've looked into sleep paralysis, and this doesn't feel like that at all. I'm sharing this in case anyone else has gone through something similar. I don't know what it was, but I know what I felt. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. Okay, number one, it was sleep paralysis, but that doesn't mean that you're being dismissed and that you didn't actually touch something, because a lot of people, sleep paralysis is just the fact that you're in between of awake and asleep and you can't move. You're literally paralyzed. That's what sleep paralysis is. And so you did have that. However, many, many, many people, when they're in sleep paralysis, have things that come visit them, like sleep paralysis demons. And it sounded like there was something really not cool that was visiting you during your sleep paralysis, probably holding you down. That's actually a lot of the time too, when people have sleep paralysis and they have these sleep paralysis demons, it's described as because something is on top of them, holding them down, like some sort of evil entity is on top of them, holding them, making them not be able to move. So it definitely sounds like you had some sort of sleep paralysis demon on top of you. But the thing is, I've never heard of a beard on a demon. Not that they can't have beards. I'm literally sure they can. I've just not had anybody describe them having a sleep paralysis demon with a beard that they could feel. Do you know what I mean? And that really freaks me out. But that might be because maybe people aren't touching them because they can't move. But I 100% believe you that you absolutely had some sort of weird evil entity on top of you that potentially had a beard. Has this happened to you any more times, or was this the only time? It's literally terrifying. I can't even imagine. People talk about these things all the time, and I cannot even imagine that happening to me. If I woke up like that, I don't know what I would do. I've had sleep paralysis before, but just I couldn't move sleep paralysis. I haven't had anything in the room with me or on top of me during, and I do not know how I would handle that. Just a tip in the future, if this happens to you in the future, a lot of people have said, first of all, it happens less when you are sleeping on your side. And second of all, if you just focus like all of your energy on wiggling your toes, sometimes it helps you get out of it. And also, I know you normally can't speak during sleep paralysis, but if you, in your head, even if you can't speak, in your head, like literally call on Archangel Michael or just like tell it to go away and use your words, even if they're in your head, they work a lot of the time. What I'm wondering about those, because I do notice that you said you remember laying on your side, but strangely your arms were crossed over your chest like you were hugging yourself, and you never sleep like that. Do you mean that like you went to sleep like that, or you woke up and you were in the sleep paralysis in that weird position? And I'm wondering if you were hugging yourself but still on your side, or if you were on your back hugging yourself, or like what was happening. That part is like weirding me out a little bit. I'm not sure about that. Has anybody had that happen to them? Please let me know in the comments. But this was freaky. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope it hasn't happened again. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. This isn't a glitch in the Matrix story, more paranormal, but I thought maybe you'd be interested. Yes, I am interested. Thank you so much. It's kind of long, so I apologize. Never apologize for the long ones, my friends. We love them long. Okay, this happened to me around 15 years ago when I was 18 years old, and it still creeps me out to this day. I'm unsure if all the events I'm about to talk about are related, but in my mind, it's the only logical explanation. Let me know what you think. So I had just gotten married to my then husband, and we decided to visit his friends, Alan and Emma, names changed, who had recently moved to Cardiff in Wales. The trip was going well, and we were all catching up one evening when Emma's friend, Saria, did I say that right? Came to visit. She seemed slightly odd from the start. Pleasant, but something I couldn't place my finger on. Anyway, at some point during this night, I'm left alone with Saria while my husband, Alan, and Emma went shopping. During the time we were alone, Saria started telling me that she was a psychic and knew so much about me. I kind of just laughed and said, right, okay. I think she sensed I really didn't believe her, and she instantly started info dumping things about me that she couldn't possibly have known. She knew I had just been disowned by my mom and the exact reasons why. Don't worry, we're good now. She knew I had recently suffered a miscarriage and told me that my little girl was safe with my granddad. She knew my granddad was blind my whole childhood until he had his cataracts removed 6 months before he passed. She knew about the friendly old lady who used to give me jelly beans as a kid. She knew what outfit we cremated my granddad in. My husband didn't even know this. Heck, I didn't even know. I confirmed it with my mom. I just sat there completely frozen. I was shocked, scared, overwhelmed. I was feeling all kinds of things, and then she just smiled, walked across the room to me, hugged me, I was crying through utter shock, and told me she had much more to tell me once I was ready. Well, I went home to Brighton, UK a few days later, and although still shook, I always wondered what she had to tell me, but had no direct way to contact her. My husband and his friend had a falling out, so I couldn't contact them to find her, unfortunately. The night we arrived back in Brighton, I was sat alone late at night watching TV, whilst my husband was in the shower, when all of a sudden, a figure at the back window caught my attention in the corner of my eye. It was around 11 p.m. and super dark, so I could only make out a male figure in a hood. My husband practically knew everyone in our street, and people would pop up over at odd times, so this wasn't too weird at first, apart from the fact that the figure was just staring at me, hadn't knocked, tried the door to come in. I got up and walked over to the window to see who it was and what they wanted. I said, "What are you doing?" in a lighthearted voice, thinking it was a friend of my husband's. The figure just laughed and said, "Just open the door." Don't open the door! Don't do it! Now the window and door are directly next to each other, like 3 steps of the door from the window. So without thinking, I just opened the back door and peered out. Nobody was there. Why did you open the door? Why did you? Guys, never open the door. Never. You're inviting it in. Now, this is a huge empty patio type garden, no furniture, etc. to hide behind, just empty and long. No possible way this person could have got out of the garden without me seeing him walk off. So I remember feeling immediately confused. I shut the door, looked back up at the window, and this hooded figure was still there, laughing at me. If he's outside still, does that mean he didn't come in? When I say my legs buckled, I am genuinely being serious. I couldn't even walk. I crawled out of that room and upstairs to my husband in the shower, freaking out, screaming. I told him, but when he went back to check, nobody was there. I still to this day cannot have my curtains open past 8 p.m. and if by chance they are, I have to look at the floor while I shut them. I am super scared this thing will come back for me one day. I think it wanted me to open the door to allow it access, but didn't you open the door and look? The thing is, a couple of months later, this psychic girl from Wales was, apparently from my husband's friend, admitted to a mental hospital. And when they looked in her flat, it was full of Satan symbolism and a big pentagon drawn in red in the middle of her living room floor. After finding this out, I've always suspected she attached something to me. How else did she know so much about me? Stuff my husband didn't even know, so it couldn't have been some elaborate prank. I still to this day have paranormal activity on and off in my life. Touch wood, no more hooded figures. More like footsteps. My toilet has flushed itself countless times. My little sister is convinced she saw a man in my hallway once, and I've been locked outside my bathroom countless times. The door only locks from the inside. I think she put something on me to keep an eye on me, but maybe I'm just connecting dots that don't exist. I'd love to find this woman in a weird way. Crazy, I know, because all these years later, I just have to find out what else she wanted to tell me. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think, and thank you for reading. Okay, I'm confused because you saw the figure out the window, but then you said they probably wanted you to let them in, but you did. You opened the door. Didn't you open the door? Even if you opened the door and nothing was there, that doesn't mean that it did not come in. You just couldn't see it. So the weird thing is that you opened the door, nothing was, I have chills by the way. You opened the door, nothing was there. And then you looked back to the window after you closed the door and it was still outside. So I'm wondering if that thing in particular didn't come inside. Maybe that thing was bringing you something. So maybe it brought something to you and you opened the door and let it in, and that's why it was then laughing outside the window again. Oh my God. Every time I think about this thing in a hooded figure like laughing outside your window, I'm freaking out. I have so many chills. So yes, I'm wondering if it brought something to you. And I wonder, maybe that's all the things you hear in the house, like the toilet flushing and the bathroom locking and all that stuff. Perhaps that's that, because I feel like the other thing that you saw, the hooded figure that you saw it and spoke to it, right? So if that was in your house, I feel like you would have seen it more. And I feel like worse things would be happening. So I'm getting the feeling that it brought something to you. Now, I have no idea. This is just speculation. This is all my opinions and what I'm just gathering from the story. And I don't know if that psychic woman was connected to this. I would say maybe, because it happened like right after, right? Like you had this interaction with this woman, and then right after is when all of these things happen, and she did know a hell of a lot about you that people didn't know, which is really weird. So I feel like either she wasn't human or she was talking to something that wasn't human that was giving her all that information. But I don't know why she would just like give something to you, send something your way. Could have, maybe those symbols, she was doing some weird fucking shit and she sent that hooded thing your way to give you, who knows? Who knows? But oh my God, that's scared. And I completely understand why you do not want to look out of the door and you have to make sure all the blinds are shut, because I would do the same fucking thing because it's terrifying. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. So spooky. I have a bit of a psychic ability, if you want to call it that. I know it sounds crazy, but I tend to astral travel every once in a while. I don't do it on command, it just happens. One time I was on the living room couch asleep, and when I realized I was out of my body, I decided to go see if my 15-year-old son could see me. My son was in the other room on the Xbox. Well, my autistic daughter Lizzie was in the living room with me, and she followed me from the living room to where my son was. And while I was waving at him, trying to get his attention, she was laughing at me. I ended up waking up 3 times and going back to sleep. Found myself back to being in the astral travel state, so I would go back to try to get my son's attention, and all 3 times she followed me from the living room to the other room, laughing at me while I was frantically trying to get his attention. He even thought it was weird how she was just going back and forth, and he never noticed me. A few weeks later, I find myself astral traveling again, and normally I don't see many other spirits when I'm astral traveling, but I ran into my youngest son, who was 3 at the time, and I was cuddling him before I realized that I was astral traveling. So I tried to go back, and it took a while, and when I finally got up, I woke my husband up and told him my son was astral traveling and we need to wake him up. We tried, but he was limp as a rag doll. Eventually he woke up, but now I'm scared for his astral travel adventures. I just pray he finds himself back, as I always do. Does astral traveling run in the family? Is my question, because that's crazy. I love that your daughter could see you, and I fully believe that. I don't know how old Lizzie was. However, I fully believe that a lot of like mental disorders, I guess, if you want to call them that, like, for example, people who are hallucinating, I believe that sometimes they're not actually hallucinating and they're just like seeing through the veil or something. So I 100% believe that your autistic daughter, Lizzie, saw you, no problem. Because I feel like she may be more in tune to that stuff as well. I love that your son couldn't see you and she was just laughing. I find that hilarious for some reason. Maybe he could have been able to see you when he was younger, but a lot of times, like as children get older and like go into adulthood, they kind of shut that off. But now you said your 3-year-old was astral traveling with you, which is wild. You said 3 at the time. So I wonder like how old you guys all are now. Like, have you continued to astral travel? Does your son, your youngest son, continue to astral travel? Does he know he's doing it? Have you gotten to speak with him about it? I have so many questions, but I think this is so, so cool. I love that you can do it. And just to maybe set your mind at ease a little bit, I've heard from most people that when we astral travel, we are connected. Our souls are connected to our physical bodies with a cord. What is it called? It's like silver cord. That's what it's called. A silver cord that connects your like astral body to your physical body so that when you're traveling around, you will always come back. And it's said that it's only severed in the case of like actual death. But I also have heard from some people that it is possible to kind of get a little bit lost out there. So I'm not sure which one is most accurate, but I've heard more that you shouldn't fear about astral traveling, that you are connected by the silver cord to your physical body, and that you will come back. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and if this has been your experience. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie. Hi, fellow Long Islander. Hello, Long Islander. I've been watching your videos for quite some time now, at least 2 years. Thank you so much for watching. My family and I went on vacation upstate New York. We stayed at a VRBO. I looked that up, by the way, because I didn't know what it was. I don't know if you're supposed to say VRBO or VRBO, but it's vacation rental by owner. A few minutes from Lilydale, New York, and had a very strange experience with the trees outside of the VRBO rental we were staying at. If any of your fans have not heard of Lilydale, I'll give them a little insight to this mystical place. Since it was established in 1879, wow, Lilydale has been the world's largest center for spiritual development and practice of the spiritualist religion. For more than 130 years, Lilydale has offered a world-renowned summer program of lectures, workshops, and other activities featuring best-selling authors, leaders in academic and scientific research into psychic phenomena, as well as the world's most powerful mediums, teachers, and healers. Lilydale is widely known as a place where knowledge and enlightenment converge in ways that deepen faith and heighten awareness. The energy of the universal life force can be felt, experienced, and developed here in this serene 19th century lakeside community surrounded by towering old-growth forest. Thanks for taking the time to watch my video. Hopefully you will read this email and share it in your pages. Okay, let's take a look at the video.
It's not windy. And look at this. Look at them moving. There's nothing there. It's just moving. Not windy at all. You look at the other things. Isn't that cool? Then look. Hi. Hi, tree. You're waving at me. This is a really cool place, man. Hello, tree.
Oh my God, I love this. I feel like that tree was definitely waving to you. That actually happened to me one time. I was getting in my car and there was like trees in front of where my car was. And there was just one branch that was like waving. And I was like, hey tree, how are you? So either that tree was waving at you, because you're right, it was not windy at all. Nothing else is moving. It's literally just those like 1 or 2 little branches that are literally like waving and nothing else was moving. By the way, it's beautiful there. But either that tree was waving at you or that could be a Fae trap. Because if you look, it's waving at you and it looks like right there to the left of it, there's like a little trail, like a little place, little opening that you could like easily walk into. So there could also be a Fae trap. Just be careful. Definitely like, hey, from afar, but I wouldn't if I were you. I'm sure you didn't because you're still here to tell the tale. Walk through there just in case. You never know. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this is a Fae trap or just a tree saying hello? Has this ever happened to you as well? And thank you so much for sharing. This was really cool. Hi. Okay, so I just want to preface this by saying I believe in spirits, but glitches aren't really my thing. Also, this isn't a creepy story, more just strange, and I can't explain why I know this, but I 100% know it's not a coincidence. Back when I was a teenager, I lived with my grandmother. She was like a mother to me. I was her comfort. She was my best friend. Our connection was always a strong one. I had been living with her for about a year when she went away on a break back to her hometown for a week. Her house was always creepy, kind of that way where you would make it a point not to look down certain corridors or into certain rooms when it was dark, but something about the house felt worse, darker almost, when she was not home, like the house missed her or she was what kept it safe. I was on edge from late afternoon on the first day, so I locked all the doors, put the chain lock in place, and hunkered down to watch something upbeat to set my mind at ease before I had to go up the creepy stairs alone. Everything was fine until I went into her hall, where the front door and upstairs stairs met. And my stomach dropped. The very locked door was open. The only thing protecting me from the street was that chain lock. I went straight to telling myself someone must have tried to break in or a family member had come to check in, but the door had no signs of a break-in and no one except my grandma and I had a front door key. Nonetheless, I called around my family asking, "Did you try to get into the house?" Nope, no one. Not a single person had tried to get in. I locked up, ran up to the bed, and spent the next week until she was home fighting sleep, petrified someone was going to come back and try to break in again because that's what had happened, right? In fact, nothing happened. Life moved on, and I always found it weird, but it was just something unexplained that was going to stay that way. Fast forward 10 years ago, and I, now moved into my own home with my own children, would call my grandmother daily on the way to work to check in and catch up. One evening, as was routine, I phoned her, and it rang out, so I gave her 5 minutes and I tried it again. Still no answer. My gut told me something is wrong. So I call and I call and I call, but when my gut stops talking and starts screaming to check in, I turn my car around and quickly end up in front of her house. Much like the phone calls, my knocks went unanswered. This wasn't right. She was an early riser, but not a leave the house that kind of early woman. So I quickly run back to my car and search for the front door key I had since I was a teen. I ran back to the house, unlocked the door, and swung it open, and clunk, the chain lock stops it from opening, and the TV rings out loudly, and suddenly I know with a sick feeling that back when I was a teenager and this door had been unlocked, it was me now. And that TV, it was the film I had watched when I was home alone that time. What's weirder, after calling the fire department to get in, I ran around that house and she was not in the living room but in her bed and had suffered a stroke. She sadly passed not long after. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Something told me to go that day, but I know in my mind and gut that I had been the one to open the door even though it had happened over 10 years earlier. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's all in my head, but either way, maybe my story is one that you can understand better. Thank you for reading. Oh my God. I didn't even think of that at all. Like I did not think that's where the story was going. I thought the story was going to be like something opened the door, you didn't know what it was scary, it happened to be a ghost or a demon or an entity or something friggin' creepy. But no, it was you. It was you. I completely believe that. We have had other stories of things like that happening where it's like the person as a child remembers like seeing this like ghost or something, right? Of an older version of themselves. And then when they're older, they're in that same spot where the child them saw them. Do you understand what I'm saying? We've had crazy stories like this, so I 100% believe that. And I wonder what it was. I was going to say, I wonder if that happened for you to like remember that so that you would like know you needed to get in there and something was wrong, but you already knew something was wrong. So you were already on your way over. So I just think it was, I don't know if there was any reason for it. I just think it was some crazy timeline crossover situation where the timeline, because you know, time doesn't actually really exist. So the time of you, older you opened the door and younger you saw the door. Like how crazy, so cool. This was a great story. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi, I'm Athena. I've been watching your videos for a while and finally have my own. Ooh. So my best friend and I went to Asheville, North Carolina for her 30th birthday. We rented a tiny house Airbnb from 8/8/25 to 8/10/25, Friday to Sunday in Arden, a small town about 15 minutes from Asheville. I would like to preface this by saying I grew up in a small town below Asheville called Columbus, so it wasn't like I had never been there before. I had been there many times. Also, growing up, I used to see spirits of family members after they died. Just thought paranormal was more normal than not. I've always been spiritually open and don't follow typical religion. I know the teachings of if you see see something, no you didn't, and if you heard something, no you didn't. But I did move away when I was 17, and it's been almost a decade since I've spent the night in the mountains. I live on the other side of the state at the beach now, where I have seen a flesh pedestrian in the middle of the night next to the swamp where I live, but that's for another story. So this is not finally had your own. You have had a story, my friend. This is just a newer story. So we arrive at our Airbnb, which is on a gravel road off the main road. We had to go about 5 minutes down the road over a tiny bridge and up a hill to a barn to arrive. Had to up and down a couple of hills, rural mountain roads, but it didn't take that long. We finally got to the top of the hill where the barn is, and our tiny house was at the bottom. We went to dinner later that night, and when we came back, it was getting dark, so around 8:30 p.m. We chilled outside on the porch for about an hour. At that point, it was dark, and I started hearing whispers in the woods to our left. Just shook it off and tried to convince myself it was bullfrogs because it's been a decade since I'd heard whispers like that, and I was in denial. It was around this time we decided to go on our first walk down by the French Broad River. It wasn't a path or anything, just had to walk across the field and around. It was eerily quiet. My friend didn't even see the river to her right because it was so quiet. Even the bugs were quiet. Whispers continued, and we walked until the forest got too thick and we turned back. Heard a couple of things in the woods around us, but just kept going back towards the house. Felt like we were being watched. We made it back to the house with no issues. It was around 10:30 p.m. at this point. We hung out more until 12 a.m. and we decided to go on another walk. Keep in mind, we'd been driving all day and needed to move. This time, we decided to walk the gravel road we came in on. We go down the hill and back up to a barn to go back down the driveway to the main road. We get to the bridge in about 5 minutes, and there's a sign that basically says, "We're not responsible if anything happens to you." What does that mean? We believed it might just be an Airbnb thing for city folks, not sure if they fell off the bridge or something, but now I'm not so sure. As we crossed the bridge, we heard something in the woods beside us, so we kept walking towards the main road. The woods ended after a bridge, and it was open fields with a few houses. A little ways after this, I felt covered in spider webs on my arms, leg, face, everywhere. My friend even tried to look with her flashlight, but really didn't see anything. I just tried to rationalize that it's fine. I just have the feeling like they're on me. No big deal. Keep walking. That's when we realize we've never seen this road before, and something doesn't feel right. We have been going in and out of this driveway multiple times already and knew where we should be. We keep walking towards the main road. It's been at least an hour, and we are definite that we should be at the end of the road by now. We finally see an RV that we had used as a landmark coming in. The RV was right past the halfway point. There was no way we shouldn't have already walked past it. In reality, it should have been a 15-minute walk from the Airbnb, but we had been walking for over an hour. I am a very stubborn, determined person, so I'm like, let's make it to the main road. Moments after that, I hear someone walk right up behind us. I dart around with my flashlight, and no one is there. It's only me and my friend. That's when I have a huge rush of emotions travel through me, and I bust into tears. I have goosebumps all over, still feel spiderwebs, and feel so heavy. Now I've had it, and we turn around to walk back. We get to the RV in a few minutes, and in about 10 minutes, we're back to the tiny creepy bridge. We again hear something in the woods directly beside us as we crossed the bridge. We are back to the top of the hill with the barn within 5 minutes. It's then we realized something happened. How did it take us so long on the way there, but less than 20 minutes on the way back? From the barn down the hill to the house, we book it. We feel like we're being watched/studied. We have the heebie-jeebies and no way to explain what just happened. As soon as we get into the house, we close every blind and curtain, anything to put a barrier between us and whatever just happened. I look at my phone, and it's just after 2 a.m. We were walking around for almost 2 hours. The next morning, we try to figure it out. We can't even find some of the landmarks from the night before. The barn, the bridge, the RV are still there, but the long winding gravel road was no more. Continued hearing whispers in the woods the rest of the weekend, but we did not go on any more walks. We've had multiple talks in the week since, and we can't make any sense of what happened. We think we may have entered a portal and lost time. All we know is that the walk didn't feel real. We made jokes about the airplane woman yelling, "This is not real," but that's honestly what it felt like. Hope you enjoy our story and maybe have some answers. I'm torn with this, right? Because the title of your thing says Weird Appalachian Midnight Walk. So if you were near the Appalachian Mountains, clearly some weird shit could have happened. And you're aware of that because you said the if you see it, you didn't, no, you didn't. If you heard it, no, you didn't rules. So you're aware of that. So it could have been something really fucking weird. Could you have gone through a portal? Yes. Also, another idea is maybe you were potentially abducted. Nope, I immediately take that back. I was saying that because it was silent, everything went silent, but that also happens with a lot of supernatural weird things, and because it was so much longer than you thought. But you were aware that whole time. So it's not like you came home and then you realized it had been 2 hours later when you had only felt like you were walking for about 20 minutes. I completely take that back. Definitely not. Definitely something supernatural. If you were walking for so long, it had to be some sort of portal or something like that. It had to be something like that. If you were like around, you weren't in the woods, right? I was going to say maybe there was some sort of like Fae trap portal thing you walked through. I'm going to go portal. I'm like so torn in this. I thought I had a great idea. And then I immediately was like, that's not true. But the silence of like the bugs stop making noises, like you literally cannot hear anything, that points to something very paranormal and scary, some sort of entity being something. And it had to be some sort of portal or something. How else would you be walking for so long in a place that didn't really exist? That road that you didn't really exist the next day, right? You said that long gravel road wasn't there anymore the next day. I don't know, guys. I'm weirded out by this one. It was definitely scary. I'm gonna go portal. I would love to hear everybody else's opinions. Please let me know what you think in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I've been looking for someone to tell this story to so it can be shared out there for a while. I hope this story is intriguing to you as it is to me. About 12 to 13 years ago now, I met this man and I was spending time with him at his apartment. I am, by nature, painfully shy, and I can recall being there with him in his apartment, red-faced, quiet, giggly, and nervous. You know how it is. He was doing his thing, just flirting away with me, and I just couldn't even respond because I was so shy. All of a sudden, my whole demeanor changed, and I began grabbing him and saying the most salacious things to him. My brain was in shock because I was talking to him as if I'd known him for a long time, and at the same time I was wondering where that shyness had gone. The things I was saying to him were completely, what's the word I'm looking for here? Steamy. My inner brain knew that it wasn't me talking, even though it was. The look on his face when I went from being this shy, quiet thing to this, all of a sudden, steamy, hot, sexual person was nothing short of shock. I guess you could say it seemed like he was in heaven with the way I was speaking to him. At this point, we had only been seeing each other for a couple of days, and this particular 10 minutes of time with him, I was touching him and holding him and grabbing him, and the look on his face was just pure shock. My feeling of shyness was totally gone, and even though somewhere on the inside of my brain I remembered it, but it was just crazy. After that 10 minutes was up, I went back to my old shy self, and I was left wondering what the heck had just happened. Now, I think that if nothing else happened after that, I would have completely forgot about this and just called it a fluke. A fluke! What? But about a year later, I'm up in his apartment again, and I'm grabbing him, and everything is hot and steamy, and then boom, I become shy, scared, nervous, and afraid to touch him or let him touch me. I was so damn shy and scared at this moment, a year into our relationship, and I couldn't figure it out. And then it hit me. I was the person from the past, scared, shy, uncomfortable, and I could remember that in my head. I literally thought that the day before we were hot and steamy and everything was just perfectly comfortable, but today for 10 minutes I'm completely shy and scared. I'm convinced that my future self came in for 10 minutes in the beginning of our relationship, and then my past self filled in that missing 10 minutes a year later. No one can tell me different. This kind of thing has never happened before or since. I wonder if anyone else has ever experienced anything like this. And it's also really important to remember that when those things were going on in the moment, even though my body was doing one thing, my brain couldn't believe it was happening both times. I'd really like to hear others tell stories like this if they've experienced it. This is crazy. I have never heard anything like this before. Like switching 10 minutes from your future self to your past self. That's crazy. I don't have any explanations for that. It's like you literally time jumped, but it I don't know what to say. I guess it's what you said, because what else could it be? So weird. And you said no one could tell you different anyway, so I'm not even gonna try to think of anything else, because I can't think of anything else anyway. We're good. We believe you. That's fucking crazy. Has anyone else experienced that before? I've had people maybe experience themselves, like we just were talking about before, themselves, like they'll see themselves or experience something with themselves, their future selves, but like to literally like switch just 10 minutes like that is so weird. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Please let me know. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie. Hi. First, I want to thank you for giving all of us a genuine safe space filled with an amazing community. Oh, You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Now, the story I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. So, for years, I would have these dreams that to me didn't feel like dreams at all. I would feel, sense, and smell everything the same way I do when I'm wide awake. But in these dreams, it was like the 1920s, maybe even earlier. They always started with me sitting in front of a campfire with people around me that I instinctively knew were my family. I remember every single detail about their looks and their clothes. I remember what they liked and disliked. Auntie, I even remember what they smelled like. But the thing that drives me crazy and makes no sense to me is that I could remember all of that in vivid detail, but I could never, ever remember their names. So one night before going to bed, I made a mental note to keep their names in my mind. I'd been dreaming of them for years and years, always in a realistic, vivid way. They never felt like dreams, Auntie. I wish so badly I could truly explain to you what I mean and just how different these dreams felt. But either way, I always enjoyed these dreams. I felt loved and wanted, and these emotions were so real to me that I woke up many times crying, so hard that I had to face waking up and leaving them again. My home wasn't the best. It was filled with abuse and addiction. This always caused me to become so depressed. I promise you, me telling you this is important because the night I told myself I was going to remember their names, everything changed. That night, my dream didn't start with me sitting by the fire with my family, laughing, smiling, and talking about their day. Instead, it started with me in a dark, cold, stone-like cave, chained down where I couldn't move. The feeling of dread and fear was so intense, and I just knew it had to do with wanting to remember their names. It felt like hours before both of my parents, two brothers, and a younger sister walked up to me and gave me the coldest glare. I've never felt so much hate, not even in my waking life. I was screaming, "I'm sorry, I'll let it go, just please let me go, and I will never try to remember again, ever." Auntie, I'll never be able to forget what my dream mom said to me. They all had these evil, twisted smirks on their faces, and she said, "I know you won't, because you're not allowed back here ever again. You put all of us at risk by trying to remember what you're not supposed to, so now you're done." After she said that, I started feeling like I was suffocating and couldn't breathe. I woke up gasping for air, sweat and tears rolling down my face. This happened years ago, but I haven't ever seen them again. Even weirder, I've never had another dream that felt like they did. Ever since that happened, my dreams are always foggy, and I never feel things when I dream now. What do you think all of this means? These dreams always felt like I was actually awake. That's how real it all felt. It still gives me chills thinking about it, but I'd love to hear any thoughts or opinions you and the glitches have. I'd love to have answers and to be able to make sense of it all. Okay, so I've had so many, I want to say millions, but literally not millions, obviously. So many people tell me stories, or I've heard even so many people telling their own stories about how they live another life basically while they're dreaming, how they have visited other timelines while they're dreaming, and how visiting another timeline and living another life in another timeline or another dimension feels very different than a different kind of dream. So I 1000% believe you when you describe that and when you say that, and I know that you are definitely traveling astrally to another timeline or dimension in which maybe you're living like a nice other little life, or you were when it was happening. Because you had so much bad stuff going on at home, I wonder if that was the reason for your astral traveling, because I know you didn't know how to astral travel and you weren't doing it on purpose going to another dimension. It was just happening. So I wonder if like you were pushed into that other timeline or that other dimension, that other time, and you were living that other kind of separate little happier life while you were asleep on purpose. Now, I've also gotten a lot of stories about the dream police, or what we call the dream police. No idea what these people or things or entities or beings actually are, but we call them the dream police. It's the people in the dreams. You are not allowed to ask what time it is, ask what the date is, say you know that you're dreaming. But this normally happens in the dream, right? Normally you'll be having a normal dream and then you'll ask one of those things or say you know you're dreaming or something, and then the dream police will turn scary and evil and drive you away and make you wake up, make you so scared and make you wake up. I feel like they're trying to scare you into like never doing it again. But what's weird about this one, this time that you're describing, is that you weren't asleep. You thought about it while you were awake. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try my best to remember these people's names for when I wake up. Then you went into the dream and it was like immediately like they knew, which is new to me. That is completely new to me. I have no idea, because you didn't say in there that you like went in the dream, everything was fine, and then you mentioned something about wanting to remember their names for when you wake up, because that in essence is like saying, you know, you're dreaming if you're trying to like remember the names for when you wake up. So I could see why if you would have said that out loud, the dream police would have been pissed, right? But you didn't. According to this, You didn't. You just thought about it when you went to sleep, which is crazy to me because I've never had that happen. So that's where I don't understand what was going on. Like, could it be that you subconsciously knew it? So like going into the dream, I say, you said it subconsciously without saying it? Does that make sense? I don't know, but I'm so sorry that you lost that little other timeline that you were in that was making you really happy. And I hope that you can get back to it someday, or that you can get into a different one someday or learn about it. But that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they somehow knew that you knew you were dreaming, and the dream police are not okay with that. And they made it really scary, and they never let you experience it again. I'm so sorry for that. But please tell me, you guys, if you've experienced anything like this, let us know in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story. A few years ago, my sister and I decided to move in together. She found the apartment and decided it was perfect for us. She actually woke me up to sign the lease for a place I'd never seen. My only stipulation was that I get the primary bedroom with the bathroom. That detail matters. We made the place our home. We decorated, unpacked, and built a lot of good memories. 2 years went by and without any real trouble. I worked in aviation. She works in the railway industry. Often one of us was home alone. One evening after a long flight, all I wanted was to soak in a hot bath. My sister was working late, so I called a friend and climbed into the tub. Mid-conversation, there was a sudden, loud bang that froze me. I told my friend, "Hold on," and I walked into the hallway. Our framed antique mirror that stood in front of my bedroom door had been knocked sideways. It had fallen about 5 feet, but hadn't shattered. One tack was on the floor. I stood there baffled. The next day, we rehung it. Later that afternoon, I was on the phone in the living room when the mirror crashed down again. This time so hard, the whole house seemed to flinch. My friend on the phone began praying, and that's when my skin started to crawl. I asked my sister to take her boutique mirror and hang it in her room. She didn't. She was a little creeped out. We called the landlord, who sent professionals to reinstall the antique mirror. 3rd time's the charm, right? For a few days, everything was fine. One night, both of us were home. I fell into a deep sleep and I woke at about 1 o'clock a.m. to use the bathroom. When I checked my phone, there was a text sent 30 minutes earlier. "Is that you in the kitchen?" I was baffled. I'd been asleep the whole time. My sister said she'd heard a noise and assumed it was me. We went back to sleep. At 5 o'clock a.m., a terrible sound, glass breaking, shivered through the apartment. I texted, "Please tell me you're in the kitchen." She wasn't. She was in bed. We met in the hallway and she was trembling. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and marched into the kitchen because fear only feeds whatever this was, and I refused to give it power in a place I paid rent for. Good for you, friend. A glass that had been sitting in the dish rack was shattered in the sink, about 8 inches from where it had been. I demanded out loud that whoever or whatever was there leave. That same day, while napping, I heard the familiar bang again. The mirror lay on the floor for the 4th time. This time, the tack and tape looked ripped from the wall, not merely fallen. That was my last straw. I performed a deep cleansing meditation sage, the whole ritual. After that, we never had another incident. I still don't know what it was, if it was a restless spirit, the building itself, or something tied to the mirror. My sister still has the mirror. She currently lives out of the state and I purchased a home. Every time I visit her, I talk about her creepy mirror. I just went to my Snapchat to screenshot pictures and videos. Oh, we love those. 5 a.m., a random glass just broke, man. What the fuck? Okay, so this is the glass that just randomly broke, which is crazy. Yesterday when the nails were ripped out. This is the mirror. For some reason, I was thinking that this mirror was like literally giant. You know why? Because I just saw the newest Conjuring movie. And so like in that they have that giant like antique looking mirror. So I was picturing like a full length mirror, not a little baby mirror. All right, and here is the video.
This is ripped off the wall. Completely off the wall, so yeah.
Okay, can I just really quick, what is that in the background? What is that sound? Oh, look, we have a Mr. Odin visitor. What is that sounds like a creepy child in the background? Was that just like the TV, or do you have a child?
This is ripped off the wall. Completely off the wall, so yeah.
You hear that? What is that? Or is that like a song or something? Hold on. Hi, Odin. Say hello, Mr. Odin. Okay, so that mirror, since it was so small, I was literally thinking it was giant. And I was thinking, okay, not that I didn't believe the story, but I was like, okay, it's more believable that like it's so heavy, right? That it's like not staying up. But then you got it professionally hung. So I was like, well, if they professionally hung it, it wouldn't have fallen down. But the fact that this was so small, like that mirror was so small. It looked like this big to me. I don't know if it was misrepresented in the picture, but to me, it looked like this big. And for it to be ripped off of that's not from weight. It's not being ripped from weight. You know what I mean? Like something had to rip that off of the wall. And obviously something was in the kitchen. Odin just knocked over my book. You don't like my book, bud? Don't knock over Annabelle. Don't do that. Be nice to Annabelle. And then the fact that something broke in the kitchen, it's weird to me that it's all glass. Like the mirror kept falling and then it was a glass that broke. You definitely had something in that house. I don't know what exactly was in the house. Could that mirror have been a portal? And that's why it was like coming off the wall. Were things like coming in and out of it at such crazy speeds that it was just being ripped off the wall? Probably not. But mirrors are portals, so you never know. But you definitely had something in the house. That is so crazy and so scary. Why does she still have that mirror? What? Does it have sentimental value? Because if not, friend, we need to get rid of that mirror, right? Odin says yes. Odin says right. Oh my God, he's so handsome. Look at his face. What a handsome guy. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hey, hi. So my experiences, leprechauns, banshee, and other supernatural stuff. A banshee and leprechauns? We don't get many of these stories. This is exciting. Been watching your videos for a while and love the ones about the Appalachian area and all of the passed down traditions. I'm from Ireland, and we seem to have the same kind of outlook about the supernatural. It's a part of life from when you're small. I grew up in Dublin, but lived in other areas of Ireland also. I'll tell you a couple of the ones from when I was growing up in Dublin. I grew up on the north side of the city, not far from the coast. Between my house and the beach was a public park called St. Anne's. Before this was a park, it was the Guinness family's estate. To this day, lots of the features were still there. The main road that leads to where the mansion once stood, it burned down during World War II. There are private gardens, bell towers, clock towers, bridges, and boathouses on the ponds. There are also the things that are not in the history books. The areas that were graves for the animals, the hidden well in the back of a closed-off garden that's got skulls set into the stone around it. The clock tower they had to close off because of the number of people who would jump from the top or hang from the window. Of course, there are stories surrounding all of these. It was once as fancy as you'd expect from the Guinness family, but they leased it to the city, and a small part was used to build housing, and the rest managed as a public park, gardens, golf, and sports fields. I spent days out walking or on my bike, going through the park to the beach and other areas. There's lots on Google about the area, and the history goes back more than 1,000 years. Battle of Clontarf took place in 1014 on the same land. What even year is that? What do you mean? What is hold on. The Battle of Clontarf on April 23rd, 1014 was a pivotal event in Irish history where Brian Boru's forces defeated the combined Leinster Norse army. Although Brian himself was killed during the battle. Fought on Good Friday, the battle resulted in heavy casualties with the death of Brian, his son, and many nobles, but the Viking influence in Ireland declined, and Sitric Silkbeard, the Norse king of Dublin, survived. Though popular myth portrays it as a Christian victory over pagan Vikings and a step towards the Irish unity, it was more of a clash between the unified Irish power under Brian and a coalition of Irish and Viking forces. What even? How did I even not... who says 1014? Like, I'm always like, okay, battles of like 18 something, 19, 1014. Has anyone else heard of this? Am I the only one that's like baffled by this and has never heard of this in my entire life and is like thrown off by the year? Am I the only? Let's get back to the story. So leprechauns in Ireland are not the little red-haired men dressed in green to give you a pot of gold. They are part of the Fae, and they are tricksters who are known to steal babies and children. I seen one when I was about 12 years old, and 30 years later, it is still clear as day in my mind. I was riding my bike in the park. It's a long pathway between two boating ponds. On the left of the path is a field of grass and wildflowers, a road, and then a beach. On the left of the path was a bank with trees and bushes all the way up. The top of the bank was the dog's graveyard. It was sunny, and I seen it dart in front of me across the path from the bank to a tree at the edge of the field. It was maybe a foot, 30 centimeters tall. It had dark brown hair or fur on its head, and its body was green and brown, but couldn't tell if it was fur or covering as it was in the shadows, and it seemed it was camouflaged from the trees. As I got closer and went past the tree it had run behind, I looked right at it, and it was staring back. I could see like smooth skin on the face. Its eyes were more human than animal, but its smile, a big open mouth smile with sharp teeth. It could have only been a second that I looked at it, but it scared me right to my bones. I got out of there and went home and panicked. I remembered everyone telling me it must have been a rabbit or a squirrel, but my grandmother closed all the windows and blinds and covered all the mirrors and threw holy water everywhere. I don't care what anyone says. I know what I had seen and I know it was evil, and it still chills me. Banshees are kind of viewed as evil, but they aren't really. We were raised to respect it and not mess with it. The banshee is the Irish version of death. She comes to you to let you know that someone will die soon, and she's there to collect them. Couple of things we were taught about them. A black comb on the ground, especially if 1 or 2 prongs were missing, was a sign that a banshee had been in that area, so you don't touch it. The banshee would come and mourn or cry for a life that was ending. She would brush her hair as she cried. If you heard her cry, you or someone you know would die. She would knock 3 times on the door of the house of that person who would die. If you've seen a banshee, it was said that she allowed you to see her because you were the person she was there to collect. I can swear that I did hear her crying one night coming from the park. It sounded like a cross between a crying baby and a screeching cat, only with a feeling of sadness, if that makes sense. So if you heard a banshee, nope, you didn't. There was one other spirit or creature around that area that stands out. My older sister told me about it. My brothers and sisters are 15 plus years older than me, so she was in her 30s telling me the story. They would hang out and smoke and drink as kids and teenagers in the park, even at night and after dark. One evening, they seen what they thought was a short man or a dwarf. Over months, it was there in the trees watching, but it got closer until it would talk to them and ask them questions, almost as if part of their friend group, but would never get close enough for them to clearly see this person. At the time, they just thought it was a lonely guy that walked in the park at night. Bit weird, but he wasn't doing any harm. She said over time, they noticed weird things. It would never say where it lived or was from, and would only say its name was Gabby. A few times he was standing talking 1 second and then would just vanish or would change places in the blink of an eye, but it didn't freak them out. Until the night they were over in a section of the park that was open fields with a 6-foot brick wall down the middle. My sister and some of her friends were running on the top of the wall with Gabby in front of them. Some of their other friends were on the wall climbing from the opposite direction. There was nowhere to go, but yet, when they were feet away from Gabby, this creature that was in the middle of them was just gone. There was just the tall brick walls and flat grass cut really short on either side for about the size of a football field. They climbed down and looked, but he was just gone. She said they only spoke to him once after that night. He said they tried to trick and catch him, but they couldn't. They would see him in the distance in the park, but he never came up to them again. She said he just looked like a man, about waist height, dark hair and eyes, but they couldn't tell his age, and he always seemed to be just in the shadows enough not to be seen. Even now, as a 60-year-old woman, my sister still couldn't say what Gabby was, but it wasn't a person. This was the kind of area everybody kind of knew everyone, and a dwarf living in that area, everyone would have known about it and who they were. It was not human, likely some kind of fae. Sorry, I know it's long, but growing up accepting this as part of the world makes you see it all. There are lots of other stories from that same area and park/estate. I'm happy to share more if you like. Living in a haunted house with a used Ouija board under my bed and seeing something evil, the monk that walked out of a house and into the ruins of a church, fairy rings, and the bad that happens from entering them. Thank you again for your content. Of course we want to keep hearing things. We always want to keep hearing things. Fairy rings, you're talking about a fae trap. Also, I did know that leprechauns were not cute little guys bringing you a pot of gold, but I did not realize that they were actually green. And I also did not realize that they were still so small. Actually, that's not true. I think I'm thinking of fairies, because I know the fae fairies aren't always tiny. Like there's like big ones, like human-sized ones, or like even bigger. But the leprechaun, I didn't realize that a leprechaun was actually green. I guess maybe that's why he's portrayed dressed in green, in like a little green outfit, because they are actually green. That's really crazy that you actually saw one. And that he was evil and he had scary teeth. I'm like, what? And also the banshee. I've never heard a banshee cry other than on a TV show. Thank goodness. I knew about banshees and I knew about their crying and their wailing, but I didn't know that they were like death, as in like they were coming to take somebody. I didn't know that about them. So that was really cool. Thank you for letting me know that. That's very scary to hear, but I'm glad that you didn't see the banshee. And what the heck is Gabby? I'm going to go with the fae too, with some kind of fae creature. Because if you got leprechauns over there, you probably got a lot of fae going on over there. You're talking about fairy rings. You're talking about fae traps. Like, I'm going to say Gabby was probably one of the fae. You're probably right. I don't know what exactly. I'm not very well versed in all of the different like fae creatures that there are. I know there are a lot. And there are some people that have a lot of information about them, but I am not one of them. But that's really, really weird. And I wonder why Gabby stopped showing up. Like they were hanging out and all of a sudden Gabby was just gone and then like never showed up again, except like far away in the shadows. Maybe because they just like disappeared that time and they're like, well, shit, now they really saw me disappear in the middle of nowhere. So I can't like show them I have powers and act like a human anymore. I have to go and I'll just watch them from afar. I know that's freaking weird though. What do you guys think Gabby was? Does anybody know more about the Fae? Let me know what you guys think about these stories in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your stories. Hello. Hi. So I have 2 stories that I would like to share with you. I used to live in another country when I was growing up, and I never had anything weird happen to me while over there, except for when my paternal grandmother would come to visit. She spent most of her adult life here in the US and would visit at least once a year, every year when I was a kid. She's recently passed away, I'm so sorry, and I've been following you for some time. Her passing has brought back so many memories, and the 2 stories I would like to share with you are not truly connected to each other other than the fact that they happened when she visited. The first story, it's about my sisters. I have 2 older sisters. They were about 18 and 16 at the time, so that's what I'm going to call them. My dad was at work when this happened. My mother said Grandma and I went out shopping, and the only people in the house were 16 and 18. 18 had her boyfriend visiting, and they were chit-chatting about our house's porch with the front door slightly shut, but not entirely, since she would have been able to push it open without her having to use the key. 16 was using the computer in our computer room. Oh my God, I had a computer room! It was back in the day when computers stayed in a room and all the family was using the same one. Yes, you had the computer room with the one computer in it. Oh my God, that's so crazy. What a throwback. If you were to use said computer, you would have to sit with your back to the wall and with a clear view of the front door. Anyhow, 18 said that at some point she heard footsteps coming their way, but they stopped right before they would have opened the door, and then the door was shut. She got really mad because she thought 16 was pranking her. 16 knew she didn't give her her key to open the door, so it was just annoying that now she couldn't get in. Meanwhile, 16 said she saw 18 shutting the door and making her way into the house, looked at her, and then walked towards where the bedrooms were. 16 said she felt uneasy and just had this feeling that she had to check on 18. She gets up, goes directly to her room, but nobody is there. She checked the bathroom and all the rooms and then starts getting worried because she is thinking 18 is probably upset or something, and she is nowhere to be found. It was during her search that she heard a knock on the door, and she decided she was going to stop and see who was at the door. She was shocked to see 18 at the door and asked her why she was acting so weird. 18 then told her that she had been outside with her boyfriend and had not come into the house at all. 16 says that from the moment she saw 18 until she finally knocked on the door, 15 to 20 minutes had passed, but 18 said she immediately knocked on the door right after it was shut. The other story happened during Christmas time. We used to celebrate with fireworks. It's a common tradition where we're from, and we actually celebrate the night of December 24th rather than the 25th. I was with my sisters and some cousins on the street lighting up some fireworks. I then decided to light another one to then throw it away from me into the street when, and I am not making this up, the street looked like it bended. I'm talking folded, like a piece of paper. I immediately looked over at my cousin and she immediately asked, "Did you see that?" We kind of just shrugged it off, not really understanding what had happened, and we never spoke about it afterwards. There was other stuff that happened during many of her visits. I'm not really sure why. I know she was always a troubled lady and was never really happy with anything. She had a really tough upbringing, so maybe that's a part of the reason. Let me know what you think. That's very interesting that these things only happened when your grandmother was here. If they were only happening when she was around, it was definitely connected to her in some way. I don't know if she had some sort of attachment that was messing with you guys or like what was going on. The street bending is like, I don't even know. I'm trying, because that has nothing to do with an attachment. Like her having an attachment wouldn't make the street look like it was bending in half like a piece of paper. So like what could be around her? Like what is she bringing with her? What kind of weirdness or energy or something that she's bringing with her that's making these weird things happen? Maybe her in some way, her energy, her being or something in some way is like bending time and space. I know that sounds really far out there maybe. I mean, maybe not for us. We talk about stuff like this all the time, but like I don't understand what else it could have been. I'm honestly actually at like a loss right now. I need to know if anybody has any ideas on this. Like, what do you guys think it would have been that she was bringing with her or she was doing or something that was making all this weird stuff happen during her visits? I need to know. Please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I'm sorry that I don't know. Dear Anti-Matrix, why hello. Hi! I recently found your channel and I absolutely love it. You're so generous to read so many amazing stories about people glitching straight out of the Matrix. So if I can share with you a story, if by some miracle you get this, I feel this is too wild to not send. Hello, thank you so much for watching and welcome. As a precursor, I have been on a very profound, strong spiritual awakening journey for about 10 years now. I have been blessed with some really intense psychic gifts, which have brought me some truly mind-blowing experiences over this period. Anyway, story. In 2016, I went backpacking solo through India for nearly a year. It was a huge catalyst for so many spiritual things happening in my life. When I returned from India to New York, I didn't move immediately into an apartment, so I decided to stay at an Airbnb for a few nights until I figured out a longer-term solution. I found a stay in an apartment by a man that was from Nepal and got really excited. I had done a visa run to Nepal for 2 weeks while in India, so I felt like we could have plenty to talk about if I were to be in contact with him and his family. When I arrive at the location, the man opens the door, and the second he does, I felt the strongest sense of something absolutely dark and heavy residing in the residence. The man looked exhausted, bags under his eyes, just completely depleted and, dare I say, depressed. He invites me in, we sit at his kitchen table while he offers me food and something to drink. Naturally, the conversation turned spiritual and somehow led into me feeling called to share with him a dream I had the week prior to my arrival that night. In the dream, I am in a dark area standing next to a woman who was wearing traditional religious garb with her face mostly covered. She keeps saying to me, "Please save my daughter, please save my daughter, she's stuck in there with a demon." I hadn't had dreams specifically referencing demons since I was a kid, so it felt really intense at the time. So in the dream, somehow I get into this bathroom where she's stuck, which is tiled floor to ceiling. I look up at the corner of the ceiling, and sure enough, there is what I would consider a biblical-looking demon, black with a long tail, wings, a demon-looking face, shrouded in black smoke. Long story short, I get her out and I wake up. Upon finishing the story, I look at the man who has now turned sheet white. He says fearfully, "Please come with me, I want to show you something." He takes me to the back bedroom of the apartment, where I already felt an even stronger evil presence. He slowly opens another door inside the room, and it is the exact bathroom in my dream. He says almost shakily, "My wife has gone back to Nepal with our daughter. She kept telling me she was feeling tormented and bothered by something in our home, but I didn't believe. By now, we are both in complete shock. He asks me if I will help him, so I agree and I do whatever feels right. I pray over the space repeatedly in every room. I play frequencies in the back bedroom on my phone intended on removing negative energy. I imagine a few hours go by. We're both exhausted, and I decide to still stay and sleep in the room I was offered." Cut to 1 year later. I had since, I think, deleted that Airbnb account and never spoke to the man again. One night, it's kind of late, I'm on the train heading back up the west side in Manhattan where I was now living, when I hear a clairaudient voice say, "Get off the train at 86th Street. I was honestly used to this by now, getting divine instruction, but this was so loud and clear I couldn't hesitate and obeyed, even though it was several stops before my stop and I was so tired. I heard the voice say again, "You will know why." So I get off the train and just walk intuitively in the direction I feel called. I am turning a dark corner when suddenly, bam! I run directly into another person. When I look up to apologize, it's the man from Nepal. We're looking at each other in complete shock once again, and he says, "Oh my gosh, I've been trying to get in contact with you." I told him about the voice and what it told me to do. I am standing there looking at this man. He looks 15 years younger, healthy, smiling, happy, a complete turnaround from the person I saw a year prior. He proceeds to tell me that he now has a way better job, he moved, his marriage is fixed. He said everything in his life dramatically changed for the better after the experience, and he thanked me. And of course, I thanked him for one of the most jaw-dropping encounters I have ever witnessed in a spiritual sense. Remember, everyone, if you feel something is off, it probably is. Save yourselves. Thank you, Anti-Matrix, for all that you do, and thank you for reading my story. I wish you all the best. Thank you!
Oh my God, this was a good one. That's insane.
Wait, hold on a second, because now I want to know, because you had the dream that you physically helped the girl in that bathroom, but then when you went there, that girl wasn't there, but you still helped, right? So I don't know if maybe did you help her specifically to be detached from that thing, in the astral? When you were dreaming, you were you did something there? Because I wonder how, when you had that dream and then how long after that she went back with her mom. Because I'm wondering if you helped her disconnect somehow in that dream, right? In the astral, maybe disconnect from the demon or whatever. And then she left, and then it was still in the house, and it was definitely affecting the man still. And you went in there and you cleansed and you got rid of it from the house. And then you fixed everything. Or were you just supposed to know, maybe you just had that dream because it was trying to get to her and she left, but like you needed to have that dream so that when you went there and you saw the bathroom, you were like, oh my God. And when you told your dream to the guy and he was like, oh my God, you could be like, okay, I'm meant to be here and help because in my dream I helped. So I'm meant to be here and help. And so you did help. And look, you freaking helped that person. You Ooh, I got so blurry and I have no idea when that happened. I've been talking and it's been blurry, but we're just going to go with it. But you helped him and his whole family, and how freaking cool is that? And I love that the clairaudient voice was like, get off at this exit, boop, get off at this stop. And you did, just to run into, like, how crazy is that? How crazy. That is so, so cool. Thank you so much for sharing this story. It was awesome. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I want to start by saying thank you for providing a safe platform for people to share their paranormal stories. Thank you for being here. I've never spoken of my experiences publicly, but felt compelled to share after my algorithm auto-played one of your episodes titled Demons in the Basement and More. It was so random, but like many of your viewers, I have had a lifetime full of paranormal experiences. I am now middle-aged, 44, and have been exposed to demons, spirits, angels, etc. from a very young age before I could fully understand what they were. For example, as a little girl, I would say 5 or 6 years old, I had a recurring dream that was always the same. I would appear in the dream holding the hand of what I can only describe as a squatty goblin type of creature. He would place me at the back of a line of children. I would peek around them to see what was at the front of the line. At the front of the line, I could see that there were 2 identical-looking squatty goblin creatures swinging a long jump rope. Each child would take their turn jumping rope until they missed the skip, and then the next would go. This would continue until it was my turn to go next, and then I would wake up. I want to make it clear that I was never afraid of them hurting me, but I would get scared if I looked right at one. When I would get scared, they could sense it. I was then given the impression that I was there to play and no harm would come to me. I believe now that I was intentionally being groomed for interaction with them. Oh my God, demons groom? Fast forward to the reason why I am writing. In the episode, there was a woman who wrote about her life experience of repeatedly being physically taken by an entity that would feed off of her fear. I knew when I heard the story I needed to share mine. No, I'm not the girl she saw in the cave with her, but I know without a doubt she is telling the truth. I am hoping by sharing my story it might help people who may be dealing with fear-based entities right now. I have always been sensitive. I pick up on things that are unspoken and would say that while I have never studied it, I have some natural psychic abilities. Most of them have been discovered by accident unbeknownst to me until an event happens. I want to also give a little family background so people understand the position I am in. My family is deeply religious. Both parents are born-again Christian. My mother was very strict and intolerant of anything spiritual outside of the church. Because of this, I was not exposed to many things growing up that other kids were. For example, we never celebrated Halloween. It was an absolute no. We couldn't dress up or have candy. Yet paranormal things were happening all around us regardless. Anyway, a few years back, my marriage started to deteriorate and my stress levels were crazy. To calm myself, I would often listen to 432 hertz music on YouTube or binaural beats. I had no idea at the time that they activate higher states of consciousness and just wanted to find a way to calm my nerves. After a couple of months of this, I progressed my stress relief sessions to thinking positive thoughts and intentionally remembering really happy moments in my life so that I could relive them in an attempt to rewire what I believed was a lifetime of negative thinking. This did help so much in making me feel better, but there were unintended results that followed. I suddenly became aware one day while painting my living room that I was able to remote view. I remember I was thinking about a conspiracy story I'd heard about the mystery of Antarctica. Then my consciousness suddenly shifted to being there. I was sitting in the passenger seat of one of those orange snow trucks that have tank-like snow tires on it. I looked it up. I guess it's called a piston bully snowcat. The driver was wearing full snow gear and a puffy red coat. There was an entity around the driver that immediately noticed me and took a swipe at me. It scared me and I was immediately bounced back to my own awareness. Once this ability was unlocked, I had a hard time controlling when I would remote view something, especially when sleeping. Overall, it didn't happen too often. It seemed to be more random, so I just kind of ignored it until about 3 years ago. I don't know what would have caused me to cross paths in the astral with this entity, and I 100% was not prepared. Here's what happened. I'm standing in a grassy field, and to the right of me is a really long tree line of what looks like the start of a dense forest. The sun is on my back, and I have the impression that it is the sun rising. All of a sudden, while I am looking at the tree line, I see a tall, white, slender figure leaning against a tree, watching the sun. It immediately resonated with me what I was looking at, even though I had never seen one before. Many people have reported a tall, slender figure in the woods with pale, translucent skin and long fingers. Its mouth had sharp teeth and its eyes were weird and dark. It scared me. I remember the moment I became afraid, it saw me. Its attention quickly shifted to where I was at. I had not known up until that point that I was viewing it through the eyes of a female deer. The entity somehow was able to kill the deer in a split second. When the deer dropped, my consciousness bounced back and I immediately woke up back at home in my bed. I was not alone, though. The entity had somehow been able to follow me back. At this point, I am not dreaming at all. I am fully awake and could sense its presence. As scary as this was, because I had been exposed at such a young age to their kind, I could sense what it was doing and what it was about. Like your viewer said, they feed off of our fear. They can sense instantaneously if you fear them. When they come into your presence, the fear that you feel is not your own. They are able to project it into your mind. It is like they have the radio station that is the frequency of fear and they force you to listen to it. That is how they extract it from you. Back to my encounter. I could feel it physically amping up the fear level, but the more it did that, the more aware I became of what it was doing. Weird, I know. The entity became normalized to me because I understood it and saw through the projection it was casting. The moment it became aware that I was aware, it disappeared and it has never returned. I would like to tell anyone listening or reading this that these entities, and there are many variations that feed off of fear, are not as strong as the human spirit. They use a cheat code to extract fear loose from us. If you're battling this, and I believe many are, don't give into it. You more than likely will not be able to stop them from dialing your number, but you can communicate with them telepathically. You should let them know that you see through them and that it's okay for them to exist, as we are all part of infinite creation. I bet that will be your final encounter. It was mine. I love when other stories spark memories for people and those people come forth with their stories. And I think you're 1000% right. Obviously, there are so many entities and beings that feed off of people's fear, and to show them that you are not afraid is probably the best thing that you can do. That is probably also like, you know, the whole rules of like, if you see it, no, you didn't. If you hear it, no, you didn't. Because if you just ignore something, it doesn't give it any power, doesn't give it any energy. So it's probably the same like kind of idea. I'm wondering what entity you're talking about when you saw something at the tree line and you said it was like a tall, white, slender figure and you had never seen one in person before. Like you had never actually seen one, but you've heard of them. What are you talking about? Because you never name it, and I'm not sure which being or entity you're talking about. It could be like a million things in the forest. Also, that's crazy that you were in a female deer's body in that instance. And I do also want to say, I believe there's a difference, right? Remote viewing is when you are like here and you're going to like view some other things, but astral projection I feel is different than viewing. If I'm not, let me just look it up real quick. Okay, yeah. So astral projection is like when you are separating your soul or your consciousness from your physical body and going somewhere else. And remote viewing, you don't necessarily leave your body. You're kind of like seeing, practicing, gathering information about a distant or unseen place or target without actually physically leaving your body. So those are the differences. So maybe you were remote viewing in the beginning and then you started astral projecting, because it sounds like your entire consciousness was like in the deer, right? And then you got like sucked back into your body. This is all super crazy though. I love this story so much. Thank you so much for sharing, and let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hi, Auntie. Hi. This is my first time writing to you. Hello. Welcome. I'm looking for advice or even just to understand what happened, because I've never had anything like this happen before. A couple of nights ago, I woke up to something holding me down. Can't exactly remember what it looked like other than a black mass, a dark, wide smile, and long hands with skinny fingers. It's like something jumped out of a horror movie. I was terrified. I couldn't move, and every time I got the strength to wake up, push the thing off me, and sit up, it would feel like I fainted and opened my eyes, laying down again, unable to move with this thing holding me down in a loop over and over again. It felt like it took me 4 solid attempts to break the cycle. I woke up sweating and crying. I definitely could not fall back asleep after that. What do you think it was? Sleep paralysis, time loop? Whatever happened, it was definitely one of the scariest things I have ever experienced. Thank you for sharing. Yes, my friend, you were absolutely in sleep paralysis, and it sounds like you had a sleep paralysis demon on top of you. This is very, very common, unfortunately, when you're stuck in sleep paralysis to have some sort of demon. This is what you're talking about when you said you saw a black mass with a dark, wide smile and long hands and skinny fingers. That's so scary. You definitely had that going on. Has it happened to you again? If it has, I said this in another video, but I'm going to say it really quick right now too for you. Tips are to avoid sleep paralysis and things like that, to sleep on your side. And also, if you're in it and you're trying to get out of it, to try concentrating on wiggling your toes. Alternatively, if you have something on you, a demon is attached, sleep paralysis demon is attached to you or on you like that, holding you down. I know you can't speak, but in your brain, you can say things to it and you can tell it to leave and call in for protection. But that's definitely what it was. And I imagine it's terrifying. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I live on my small family farm outside of a town called Bartlesville in Oklahoma. About 4 years ago, my mom and dad bought me a bunch of discount chicks at our local Tractor Supply. Oh, little chickies. There were 92 in all, which I thought was neat because that's my birth year. That's a lot of chicks, dude. Once these chicks started reaching adulthood, I started losing a lot of them. They would be healthy one day and gone the next. Not a mark on them. No feathers missing, no blood, no nothing to show that they had been attacked. My coop was like Chicken Fort Knox. It's an old metal barn with a huge heavy metal door that can be tricky to open, so I knew nothing was getting in to kill them. I decided to collect a few that had passed and have them sent off for testing and had them in a bag in my coop for the night. I went out in the morning to go let them out of the coop for the day, and the bag was in the yard, and all the dead birds were everywhere. All intact, hadn't been eaten on or anything, and the door was shut tight. I looked to see if windows were broken and mesh covering was torn or cut, and it was all intact. Looked for dig marks, none. So I gathered up the birds and I put them back till the pickup guy got there. Lost a few more that day. Put them in a bag and set them in the coop. Locked it up for the night. Same thing the next morning. Bag out of the coop, chicken bodies in my yard, and coop still locked tight. Thought it was very, very strange. Things got better in a few weeks. Wasn't losing birds. Got a test back, nothing was found to be the cause of death. Went on about my business. Suddenly, lost like 5 birds all in one day. Picked them up, put them in a bag in the coop to deal with later. I had a birthday party to go to that night. That evening, I got home late. It was already well past dark. I went to close up my chicken coop and had my little Jack Russell with me. Started closing up and it got dead quiet. No crickets, no wind, not a sound. Looked over and my little dog was staring at the roof of my parents' house. Teeth bared, hackles raised, eyes locked on something but wasn't making a sound. I got chills. I didn't look up. I didn't run. I finished what I was doing. I picked up my dog and I walked back to the house, looked down at the ground the whole time. That next morning, the bag was out of the coop and chickens were scattered around the yard. Coop locked up tight. That night, I went to lock up my coop and I said, I don't know what you are or what you want, but in the name of Jesus, you are not welcome here and need to leave. And I haven't had an issue again. To this day, I don't know what it was or what it wanted, but I don't like being outside in the dark. Friend, I get it. I don't like being in the dark, period. I am still scared of the dark and I am 42 years old and I don't even have a reason like this. But what the fuck was on your parents' roof that your dog was staring at? That is so, so scary. Our pets know. It was already scary. This was already scary. The fact that it got dead quiet. It was like in your presence. So I wonder if like that's the time of night that it would normally come do its weird fucking thing. Why would it do that? Like, why was it taking the dead birds out? What's the point of that even? Like, sometimes I'm like, what's even the point? Like, what's even the point of you ghosts doing weird shit? Or you entities, or you spirits, or you beings, or whatever the fuck you are? What is the point of you even doing some of the stuff that you do? Like, what was the point of this? Just to scare? Just to be scary, maybe? Just to scare people? I don't know. That's so freaking weird and so freaking scary. And you did exactly what I would have done. I would have done the same thing. I would have finished up what I was doing. I would have grabbed the dog. I would not have looked up. I would have went right into the house. And that's it. That's it. I would not have wanted to look up. Anyone else in Oklahoma have any crazy weird shit like this happen? Let me know in the comments and let me know what you guys thought about the story. And thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so proud of you for telling it to go. And it went. Use your words. Your words are powerful. Good job. Good job. Hi, Auntie. Hi. My name is Brian. Hello, Brian. About a year ago, something happened to me that I still can't explain. I don't know if it was a glitch, a bug in the Matrix, but I hope you or your subscribers can help me figure it out. So here's what happened. A year ago, I was walking around downtown and I noticed a video game store. Yes, I'm 30 and I love video games. There's no age limit. I agree, friend. I play Fortnite. Okay, you should do whatever you want. There's no age limit on anything. Have fun and enjoy your life. Okay, we're going to keep going. I went inside this amazing store full of great deals and sales, and I had a blast. After a few minutes, I left and called my mom and brother to tell them that we absolutely had to go back there the next day. My brother is a gamer too, so he would have loved it, and I really wanted to go back with him. They agreed. The next day we went back. I took the exact same route, and guess what? The store was completely gone. My mom told me I must have taken the wrong route, but I insisted it had been right there yesterday. I searched every street and alley, but I couldn't find it anywhere. My mom thought I was imagining things, but I was genuinely freaked out too. How can a small video game store just disappear like magic in a single day? Anyway, a year later, I still don't have an explanation. I swear the store was real. I even talked to the manager who told me he was new and said goodbye when I left. It was just so strange. Keep up the great work. I love your content. I'm wondering if where you were walking was a place that you had walked many times before or been in many times before, and if you had ever noticed this video game store before. Like, did you just notice it this one time, or have you noticed it in the past and you're like, I want to go in there? Because if you noticed it in the past and it was definitely there for a long time and then you decided to go in one day and now it's gone, I would say you switch timelines. That would be my thing, that you switch timelines somehow into a timeline where that thing didn't exist. But if you had never seen it before and then all of a sudden it was there that one day and you went in and had a fucking blast, so much so that you wanted to go back and then it was gone again, I don't know what that means. That could be like a timeline crossover, maybe like 2 timelines crossed over, and in the other timeline that store was there and so you saw it and you experienced it in this timeline. Or like, what else? What else could that be? Like, why else? Some sort of like weird portal there? Like what? Like what? I love these. When like someone goes to a physical place and then they go back to that physical place and it's gone and like never existed. I love those ones. Those ones are crazy. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie. Hi. I hope you are well. I am, thank you. How are you doing? Today I experienced my own glitch in the Matrix. It's not too exciting, but very confusing. I work night shift, so even on my off days, I tend to be awake while nearly everyone else I know is asleep. Because of this, I do a lot of things to keep myself entertained besides watching TV. Sometimes I spend time learning single-player card games, and today I pulled my cards out to play. When I started shuffling the cards, which are red, I saw a flash of blue in the cards, and I thought, what is that? So I flipped through the cards and saw that a few of the cards had blue backs, and the rest of the deck was red. At first, I thought that maybe some cards from another deck got mixed in, so I organized all the cards to make sure they were correct with no doubles of anything. There were no doubles, and the missing red cards were replaced by blue ones. I don't ever recall replacing missing cards in any of my decks. I have a few decks of cards, and sometimes I do combine them if I'm playing with a larger group of people, so maybe I didn't separate my decks correctly. I went and got my other decks of cards, and I actually don't have any blue-backed cards. They're all red, Bicycle brand. And as much as I play with my cards, you'd think that I would remember if one of my decks had anything wrong. I don't recall ever having anything wrong with any of my decks. Not a huge deal, but still extremely confusing. Where did the blue cards come from? And they attached this picture of their cards with, look, a couple of blue cards in there. It's freaking wild, man. This one is so crazy. I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. How could, it's just, I'm just going to label this as a glitch in the Matrix, because it's not like the entire deck swapped, right? It's not like you had an entire deck swap out. Like, you had a few cards that changed to blue, and they were the exact cards that would have been red, but they like the missing, like they're all there. They're all there. So why the fuck is there just some random blue cards? My first thing was like, oh, they're from another deck. But when you said you went through all the decks and you have 0 decks with blue backs, this is crazy. This is definitely, I don't even know what else to label this besides like a glitch in the Matrix. Like, how freaking cool and weird. I would be very interested to see if like one day they switch back in their red. If that happens, please let me know. If they switch back in their red again, like you need to let us know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie. Hi. I love watching your videos. I'm such a big fan. Thank you for watching. So I have spooky stuff that happens all the time around me, but today I'm here to tell you about my husband. I'm a terrible storyteller, so please bear with me. This happened in the late 90s in South Dakota. My husband was at a house party that some of his relatives were also at. My husband's cousin and the cousin's girlfriend were, I guess, fighting, and the girlfriend was telling her boyfriend that she was sleeping around with my husband. She wasn't. She was just instigating a fight. Oh my God, why would you do that? And that made him, hubby's cousin, infuriated. He then goes and, what my husband thinks, sucker punches him in the side, and then he takes off running. My husband goes to run after him and then becomes extremely out of breath and all of a sudden feels his shirt getting wet. His cousin didn't sucker punch him. He stabbed him with a full-size fillet knife. What? He then says the next thing he remembers was being in a helicopter, and that is when he died. His aunt and cousin, different cousin, are driving in the car in Colorado, and they see my husband sitting in the back seat of their car. And when they turn around, he was gone. The doctors were able to save my husband's life that day. He is very lucky to be alive, but he says he doesn't remember a thing. He says it was just completely nothing. I've always told him he's just not meant to remember the other side. Hold on, I'm so confused right now. Okay, so he got stabbed, and then he remembers being in a helicopter. That's the next thing he remembers. His aunt and cousin are driving in the car in Colorado, and they see, oh, you were in South Dakota. They see him sitting in the backseat of their car, and then they turn around and he was gone. So they were are you saying that they were driving in a whole different state, by the way? They were driving, and then all of a sudden, he was in their back seat, and then they turned around and he wasn't? Is that what you're saying? And how the fuck would that tie into him being in South Dakota getting stabbed and dying in a helicopter? I don't understand how those two things go together. Was he like jumping around timelines? You know what I mean? Like, was he like got stabbed in the helicopter, dies, quantum immortality, jumps into their moving car. Then he was like, wait, you know what? Nope. You know what? Nope, not going to go here. And then went back to the, I am literally so confused on how those two things are related. I can 100,000% see him dying and then coming back. But how did he just jumped around? He just like jumped to another state? I'm like so confused right now. What do you guys think? This is crazy and so weird and crazy. And it wasn't even one person. It was like his aunt and his cousin, like aunt and different cousin, both saw him. It wasn't just one person hallucinating. It was two. It was two people seeing. So that happened. That's friggin' so wild. Also, why would we do that? Why would you make that up, girlfriend? Why would you make that up? You got someone killed. That's crazy. This whole thing is just like, I don't even, let me know what you guys think in the comments. This was a crazy story. Thank you so much for sharing. Dear Anti-Matrix, hi. First of all, thank you so much for creating this space. I've grown up, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. I've grown up having a lot of weird experiences that I rarely talked about, mostly because the general people around me didn't have the capacity to understand. So thank you for holding space so I can tell my story. You're so welcome. I've gone through all of your videos on YouTube about reading other people's experiences, and I can't seem to get enough. So fascinating, this mysterious world that we live in. Okay, to start, I'm a 35-year-old woman born and raised in the Caribbean. My grandfather, mother's side, was an indigenous man that kept to himself a lot. Unfortunately, he passed away before my teens when I got more curious about our family's history. Fortunately, however, the handful of times we spent together, beautiful, weird, and sometimes scary stories were told by him. Apparently, back in the day, there were a lot of sightings of mysterious beings around the island, like creatures with red glowing eyes and real gnomes running around. Ghost apparitions were normal, everyday occurrences. And with this, of course, came a lot of superstitions and rules to follow. For example, if you came home after midnight, you must enter through the front door with your back facing outside. This is to scare off any unwanted spirits that might enter with you if you're not facing them. Not everyone was capable of seeing or feeling these things, but my ancestors definitely had this ability, and it was passed on to me. Hooray! Now let me tell you about my own personal experiences. These experiences played out between the ages of 3 to 25. Yes, my earliest memories are from when I was 3 years old. It's been 10 years since my last creepy occurrence. I believe it might have something to do with the 5G internet that was installed. It created a numbing/dampening effect on the energy of the spirit world. I haven't been able to perceive anything since then. Just an observation. I might be wrong. Anyways, my earliest apparitions happened in my childhood home. Being the only daughter, I had a room to myself. I would sleep with my door open and almost every night woke up in the middle of the night to either get a glass of water or use the bathroom. Occasionally, I would see this shadow figure glide through the hallways. Only always the hallways. It never entered my room. It was the size of an adult and I felt it was male. This became a regular thing that I would see at night, especially during full moons. I used to not be able to sleep at all during full moons. Then one night or early morning, it was around 4:30 a.m., I went to the kitchen, got my water, and as I was heading back to my room, I saw a silhouette of a person in the bathroom sitting on the toilet, looking at me. I honestly thought it was my mother, so I smiled and was about to greet her when I switched the lights on, and there was no one there. I quickly switched the lights back off and went straight to my room. My brain kept processing until the sun came up. When I shared this with the rest of my family, it turned out that everyone was seeing this shadow figure, but no one wanted to acknowledge it. No one mentioned it before I did. It never felt threatening, no, just there. I'm sorry, but ghosts are going to the bathroom now? We're like legitimately seeing like a ghost on the toilet? Is that what you just said? That's wild. Fast forward a few years later, I'm in my early teens having a hard time. Depression was creeping up when I started to experience sleep paralysis. Oh no. I remember very vividly the first time it happened. I'm sleeping, my eyes flung open, but I can't move my body. I'm on my belly, feeling this immense weight on me, and only my eyes can move. Frantically, I scanned the room and I can't see anything unusual. I started to panic, and it took all of my strength to sort of fight to exist. That's the best way I can describe it. I don't know what would have happened if I allowed it to do its thing, but it felt like I had to fight to keep my body. And it worked. I snapped back into myself and all was fine. This happened a few more times just like that. A few seconds of terror and then it was gone. I don't think it was the same shadow figure of the hallway. This felt like something else, something darker. I never told anyone about the sleep paralysis. By then, the relationship between my family and I was getting rough, and there was no one to share this with. So I just put it in the back of my mind and continued with life. The last sleep paralysis experience was a few years later. I'm a young adult now and had moved in with a friend in a small apartment. It was during the day, mind you, all the other ones happened at night. I was by myself and taking a nap. This time was very different, not only because it happened while the sun was up, but also because of what it did and how I felt. So I'm instantly woken up by a presence. I can't move my body, but I'm well aware of my surroundings. I'm on my belly. I clearly feel something start to climb into the bed on top of me. From my feet, moving its way to my head. I can feel the whole weight of this being on me. I guess because of previous experiences, I am not panicking this time. This thing was here for something else. It started to touch me everywhere, like caressing its hands on me, but in a heavy way. It then started to growl right in my ear. I felt the vibrations of the sound on my face. As it continued to growl, I felt something large beginning to expand between my legs. I understood what it wanted and I was like, hell no, this thing wanted to grape me. I started to fight it off. It took all that I had to snap out of this one. It was very strong. Luckily, I managed, and that was the last of it. My spiritual journey took off after that. I like to believe I have a crew of angels guarding me, walking with me at all times, and for that, I am so grateful.
That was an incubus, my friend. You just got attacked by an incubus. That's so scary and crazy and weird.
Okay, last story to share. This one is a bit more cheerful. This is about Casper, the friendly ghost. I fell in love and moved in with my first boyfriend. We found an old house to rent that was just perfect. The landlady lived next door. Soon after we settled in, I started to hear weird noises. First was the gate chains rattling like someone was opening them. I brushed it off to the wind. Then I would hear water dripping in the corner of the master bedroom. There were absolutely no pipes running there. And it wasn't raining. These kept happening at random times. I found it odd, but I didn't think much of it. Then one brilliant day, I was home alone with my dogs when all of a sudden I felt vibrations in the air. My dogs went on alert mode. Then, like a burst of energy, the whole house filled with sound. It was a yell. It started low, but it got super loud. All in 3 seconds, it said, "Wee!" Just one big yell. My dogs freaked out and started barking. Because of my dog's reaction, I was like, okay, I got it. There's a presence here. This one, however, didn't feel malicious in any way. This presence just wanted to be acknowledged. And so I wanted to know more about him. I told the landlady about what was happening and she freaked out. She was ready to call a priest. I was like, no, this spirit wasn't trying to harm us. It just wants to be known. She sort of calmed down a little and proceeded to tell me about the spirit. Apparently, the landlady is the daughter of the man who built the house. Unfortunately, he was a drunk and had passed away in that house due to alcoholism. The dripping noise, that was his drink glasses he would leave in the corner of the nightstand that tumbled and leaked out. The yelling, that was his unique way of greeting everyone. After learning all this and his name, I would talk to him. Just general conversations. He never answered back directly, but I was able to feel him. I felt he was a protective force who also liked to play many pranks. The most hilarious and freaky one was this. I'm in the kitchen making a pot of soup. I have this basket where I keep onions, potatoes, and limes. I go to the basket to grab a lime. I put it on the cutting board and I step away to walk over to the stove to taste the soup. I walk back to the cutting board and the lime is gone. I'm confused. I know for sure I just grabbed a lime. I say whatever and go back to the basket to grab a second lime. I go back to the cutting board, and right when I'm ready to cut the lime, I feel something touch the back of my foot. I look down and I see a lime rolling back like someone just rolled it to me, and now it's rolling back because it hit my foot. I knew immediately it was him. I busted out in laughter. He was a great soul. He also helped me figure out that my boyfriend was cheating. So strange how that happened. I was guided to go look in the sewage drain, like what the fuck, and found a condom floating. Between the boyfriend and I, we never used condoms because we were trying to conceive. Thank goodness that didn't happen, and I was done with that relationship. I only stayed a year in that house. I like to believe I helped the spirit to cross over because at the end of that year, the happenings had stopped. I hope he is resting in peace now. That's all for now. I have more beautiful stories of angels appearing that happened more recently. I will share those another time. Oh, that sounds so nice. Thank you so much. Sending lots of love and light to you and all who are listening. Stay blessed. Good on you, because I don't know if I could have became friends with this ghost. After the yelling, I feel like the yelling would have freaked me the fuck out. But I think that's so amazing that you actually like talked to the landlord, you figured out who he was, and then you kind of like hung out with him. I feel like you really helped him out, and that's really, really nice. I love when people help spirits to cross over and to be at peace, and I think you did a really good job of that. But I definitely, nope. And the incubus, where did that come from? I would like to know. That is so scary and gross. And I'm so glad you got it to leave because, oh my God. Oh my God. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this. And thank you so much for sharing your stories. That concludes our creepy compilation for today. If you like videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. But if you want to keep it going right now, you can check out this video or this playlist.